Thank you so much, Prem. Good day to you all, and thank you again for attending this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, the current global discourse on sustainable agriculture and food systems is dominated by developed nations and focuses on organic, regenerative, and agro-ecological practices. These dialogues meet the needs of the US and of European nations, but do they serve African nations' diverse agricultural and food systems?
So can I invite Dr. Umu to start addressing this question?
Yes, thanks, Prem. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to take part in this very important discussion. Let me start by saying that the current global discourse on sustainable agriculture and food systems is not a new one. It's a new name to a debate that has started decades ago on alternative agriculture, organic farming, low input sustainable agriculture. It has always started out of concern that our natural resources are limited and we need to think of better ways and means of farming. Now, is it a pertinent discussion for Africa? And I think, yes, absolutely. We do have limited resources, and resource degradation is a critical concern for African nations. The other pertinent question is, can organic agriculture alone generate the yield increases needed to achieve food security in Africa, to feed over 1.3 billion people, 27% of which are food insecure? Now, there's been hundreds of studies in this area on the subject, and those studies have shown that although organic agriculture can make a significant contribution to food security, it is not enough alone in itself, because yields in organic agriculture tend to be 20% lower than conventional yield. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to achieving food security in Africa, but a mix of systems. Basically, the best combination to maximize nutrient availability to the crop, to improve crop response, to minimize nutrient losses and environmental degradation. So I would say that we need in Africa an integrated approach, an integrated and participatory approach to soil fertility management, an approach that combines organic and inorganic, as well as traditional methods of soil conservation that are adapted to local socio-economic conditions. Thank you.
Okay, good. Dr. Lal, would you want to build on to this remark?
I fully agree with what she said. What is needed is integrated soil fertility management. That is absolutely correct. We should try to do as much recycling as we can, but if there is a negative nutrient budget, it must be supplemented by chemical fertilizers judiciously, prudently. And that fertilizer is not only the NPK, also the macronutrients, especially the macronutrient part. I would like to mention, though, that as much as possible, we must recycle biomass, because soil organic matter content of soils of Africa is very low. And biomass can only be built, organic matter can only be built if we return biomass back to the soil. And we recognize that farmers need crop residue for other purposes, such as feeding cattle or many other household uses. I think we must make the provision that crop residue is returned as much as possible. That is how soil health will improve over time, and soil can become disease suppressive. So integrated soil fertility management, yes, that should be the motive, and based on the possibility to build soil health in general through improvement of soil organic matter content. I might mention one more part, that when we talk about nutrient, please don't forget that nutrient availability and efficiency also depends on soil physical properties as well. So if the physical property, especially soil temperature, drought stress, compaction, crusting, erosion. If these problems are not taken care of, even when you apply inputs, they are wasted. So integrated soil fertility management and the overall improvement in soil health, physical, chemical, biological, is really the key to break the yield stagnation that we saw how much yield differences between the US, North America, Europe, and Africa, East and West both. That yield gap, to me, is not only just the lack of fertilizer, is also degradation of soil health.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Makanda. Can we combine the discussion? Um, there seems to be a need for, let's say, more Africa-oriented approaches rather than the global discussions. How do you think we could guide the global discussions, that global discourse, in a way that there is more attention for the specific situation of the African continent, rather than, having all these systems imposed on the African countries, for instance, by donors, etc. And how could we address the topics that Dr. Lal mentioned, and have influence on guiding investments in soil health on the African continent?
Yeah, thank you, Prem. I think first and foremost, as you rightly said, I think we need to make sure that we pursue a uniquely African green revolution. At the same time, we need also to take into account uniquely national, green revolutions. Because Africa is not a country; it's a continent. You have, varied, ecological zones and agriculture farming systems vary very considerably. So it is critical, therefore, that we really tailor some of these global conversations to the unique circumstances of the millions of smallholder farmers within Africa. Most of these smallholder farmers are very poor resourced in terms of land availability. That's why they continue to exploit the small parcels of land every year. They continuously mine it by getting the little nutrients available, to the extent that indeed for many countries in East and Southern Africa, they have very starving soils. And what we do then, I think the first thing is, of course, we need to generate, knowledge around those specific, circumstances of those, countries. Do we have a full understanding of those farming systems? Do we have a full understanding of, the role of women in farming, young people who are coming in? Do we have an understanding of newcomers, particularly the emerging of these commercial farmers? Maybe it is those commercial farmers who have got the capital, they've got the access to technology that might actually begin to really begin adopting some of these more intensive and advanced technologies linked to soil management and soil health. So I think that understanding of the unique environments is absolutely fundamental. But I think beyond that, going back to what the global community needs to appreciate is that within Africa, the African governments have defined their own frameworks. We have the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, which is actually the blueprint for enhancing agriculture productivity and food security in Africa. And to what extent are these global conversations take into account these uniquely African defined frameworks? Because it's within the context of those African frameworks that the African leaders will begin to commit themselves to matters linked to soil health and soil fertility. It is within the context of those frameworks that they will actually commit themselves to investments in the agriculture sector. And there's no question at all that one of the most pressing challenges, particularly for African governments, is really to invest beyond just fertilizer. But do they have enough scientists? Indeed, Professor Lar, who is a globally renowned soil scientist, needs to be challenged. I mean, to what extent are eminent colleagues, scholars like these, paying attention to mobilizing a new crop of African scientists that can really begin to be supportive of that transformation that is required, that transformation which is linked to building a resilient soil health program for each of the
Okay.
countries we're dealing with.
Dr. Lal, this framework that Dr. Makanda is talking about, how would it look like agro-technically speaking? What would be different compared to all dialogues on regenerative agriculture, on organic agriculture, etc.? So how would that look like, such a framework?
I think I first fully agree with what Richard said. We need highly trained African scientists trained under the local conditions where the problems are. Let me give you an example. When I joined in '69, in 14 countries I was working in West Africa, there was only one soil physicist with an MSc degree. And things have improved since then, but compared to so many countries, so many ecoregions, so many diverse biophysical, socioeconomic conditions, the three components of research, teaching, extension are still weak, and they need to be strengthened. And they need to be strengthened with a view that the scientists in agriculture working in Africa of African origin who understand the culture, local customs and traditions, they are respected and rewarded appropriately. That reward system is very important. So they know that they are. And the other part I would really like to suggest, each country within each ecoregion, for example, Sahel, humid part of Africa, the sub-Saharan part, the highlands, there must be a periodical every 5 year maybe, a report on state of the soil health. That information, yes, soil map has been produced for Africa. Some of it is on a very large scale, 100,000 or so. But I'm talking about state of the soil health. The status of soil degradation by erosion, compaction, nutrient depletion, whatever other salinity, whatever other causes, a very systematic, properly organized state of the soil health at least once every 5 years. US started this in 1987, state of soil conservation in the US, and every 5 years they have been predicting the rate of soil erosion by water and wind, compaction, soil quality. I think that is required, and it should be done, as I said, not only on national basis, but ecoregions, because ecoregions sometimes cut across, so that every 5 years you can see what the trend. And if UNCCD says that we want to achieve land degradation neutrality, then that state of the soil health map will tell us where we are going, where we are weak, where the trend is upward. That I think they should negotiate with FAO, with USAID, with other organizations. The work should be done by African scientists, but support, funding support, and other hopefully can come from somewhere else. I fully agree with ISFM. I only want to mention uh, the landscape. I think, Prem, you mentioned also landscape adoption of technology. I understand what it means. I know farmers in Ohio and other elsewhere in Midwest who are 2,000 acres, 5,000 acres. I know one farmer 10,000 acres. So landscape adaptation of technology for that 10,000 acres, what should be grown on the upper part of the hill, what should be grown on the middle slope, what should be grown on the foot slope, what should be grown on north facing slope, south. Okay, excellent. Now let's think about the case of farmers who are 2 acre, half acre, 1 acre. And within one landscape from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill, there may be 100 farmers. Whom are you going to sell what part of landscape they should do where? So please think about it. simply using a terminology without realizing the on-the-ground biophysical and human dimension issue. Supposing you have a farmer who has only land on the upper part of the hill. You tell them you should be growing here lowland bottom rice. It's not appropriate. So I think we have to be very careful. Yes, landscape is an excellent idea, and there may be some farmers in Kenya, Rhodesia, elsewhere, where they do have a large land area and where it applies. But when the majority of our farmers are half acre, 1 acre, they have a piece here, piece there, we have to think about what that concept means in their context. That's very important. The other part I'd like to mention is that we should really reward farmer for if they adopt better management practices. That's the only incentive. Farmers who adopt improved practices, this improve soil health, they increase ecosystem services, which help not only them but the entire world community. Climate change mitigation, biodiversity, water quality, everything, they should be rewarded appropriately, fairly, justly, transparently. That is a very important part. Thank you.